Okay, so now we're ready for the lecture for Unit 10.03. Um, all right, that's not too loud. All right, so this subunit focuses on WH word questions and how we use them in a sentence. So we're going to look at a couple new phrases, a couple new, one's a new question word, one's just a new vocab word. So it's a pretty short unit. We're going to focus mainly on grammar, on sentence order. Um, oh, why is that happening? Okay. Boosh. All right. So we should already know all of the question signs, right? What, who, where, which, when. Remember, there are two different whens. There's when, which is like when in history, when in time. It could be general, could be how many years ago. It could be, a general time, like what season of the year. This is the most generic, right? It's the hand going around the clock face. There's a specific where you can go, what time? And I suppose if you want to, which month, which year, you could also be more specific and use which. But in general, there are two signs for when. There's when, and when. When does class start? When. Then why. Now, I'm not including in here for if we've discussed it. If you've already discussed it. I think in ASL2 I usually talk about it, but sometimes instructors will hold off because it's a bit different than how we use why in English. So you may see for, like what for what purpose, and then there's also why or why. Then how. We've got the typical basic how, right? How. Sometimes people, how, like I don't know how. This tends to be more feeling from the inside. Express your feeling. How. So, always, if I over-explain things, it's just because ASL3 we tend to get people placed from other schools. So I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So if you already know this stuff, just put a feather in your cap and call yourself macaroni. Okay. So how. Then we also have how much and how many. How much goes up? How much? You can also do like what size, kind of like a question, but how much? I'm not explaining that well. For right now, how much? How many is oftentimes the same sign, how much and how many. Sometimes people will be, you can do this with a question, the sign for many, or are there many? So I would say the default would be this, how many? Okay. So those are the question words. Now we want to introduce one more new one, what happened? And we're literally just taking what and adding happened. What happened? And usually we don't see the what. It's like, happened. What happened? So only in ASL introductory classes do we go, what happened? What happened? What happened? What happened? Even in the GIF that we show right here, what happened? What happened? What was that? Was it the film A Mighty Wind, where there's a character who constantly is going, what happened? One of the more annoying characters on film. And he's a Cleveland native. Right. Okay. Rest in peace, Fred Willard. Funny at times. Other times, just kind of weird. Anyway, so what happened? So now we're going to start getting into grammar. And that's going to be the big part of this unit on getting used to sentences. And it's a good thing to start the semester off with because we've had the summer off of signing. Some people, I don't know. So first thing I want you to think about is the simplest ASL sentence. The simplest statement you can make in ASL is a topic followed by a comment. Okay, so we're going to say, my house is blue. My car is red. That guy is nice, right? So it's topic, eyebrows go up when we introduce any new concept. I like to phrase it with my ASL ones in the idea of, if you're talking about a movie, the first thing you need to do before you start talking about it is ask if they know the movie. Because if they know the movie, you don't have to give them the plot. If they don't know anything about the movie, you kind of have to give them some information, right? So there's a check-in with the person of, hey, you know this? And the example I always use is, and I'm watching the other person for, you're going to give me a nod or a shaking your head. If you say no, then I know, oh, okay, it's the Superman kind of like, he's got a hammer, and he's got like a helmet and armor, blonde hair, that lousy movie. So topic, Thor, eyebrows up. And then I answer with my comment, sucks. Okay. Just, if you haven't seen it, just accept that it sucks as a movie. So topic, comment. So eyebrows up for topic, eyebrows down for comment, or usually a nod, or like, oh yeah, like that. So topic can either be the subject that you're talking about, some general concept that you're then going to comment about, or it could be the person who's going to do the action. He ate it. Him. So that would be the topic. Okay. He hasn't eaten the sandwich yet. That kind of thing. If you ever diagrammed sentences back in grade school, high school, you probably talked about the subject and the predicate. Although I don't know if many schools are teaching diagramming sentences. If you like language and the structure of language, look at diagramming sentences. It's a really good way of looking at how these pieces interact. What's connected to what? When you're dealing with long sentences, that can be really important. We don't teach it in ASL classes because that's too much English. But then again, most English classes don't teach it anymore because it's too much English. Anyway, so the next through section, I think it's 2 slides. There are 10 sentences. And they're going to ask you to identify the topic of each question. Normally I'd go around the room and everybody would, chime in. What do you think it is? It's a good way of checking on vocab. But I think most of this other vocab we've already had in other places. So what would be the topic of the first sentence? How much does a baseball hat cost? So we're not even looking at the ASL. We're just looking at what is the topic? What are we talking about? I'm trying to find out about a baseball hat, right? So baseball hat, baseball cap. And the verb is cost, right? Sometimes, English, sometimes you look at something and go, well, that's a noun. Could be either. And you have to look at how it's functioning. And we really love in English to verbify nouns. I'm trying to think of I can never think of an example of this, but anyway, whatever. We like to take a noun and make it into a verb. Texting. No one would have ever thought of texting. Text is a noun. Now we text someone. Or we have an app called Skype, and we Skype people. That's like saying, I'm going to iced tea you. But so sometimes you're going to have to look at a sentence and go, oh, how is that being used? When we get into more complex sentences, location is going to sometimes be an object, and sometimes it's going to be a location. Okay, so first one, baseball hat. Second sentence, what is the number that comes after 67? First of all, what is a word? It's not a number, so it doesn't come after 67. But what would be the topic of this sentence? right? So we're looking for what's this number, what's this, and then right before it is 67, right? So 7. Right? So we're talking about that's what we're focused on. What's that blank space after 67? The next one, what activities do you have to do in the next few days? Activities, or what do you have to need to do? Could use this. What are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing the next few days? Or have to, what do you do? So activities. And it's usually both hands just coming in. Action, activity. Why is talking not allowed in class? Talking. So talking is the subject, right? That's what we're talking about. It's not a verb. The verb is not allowed. Okay. So sometimes these sentences are going to be a little bit confusing. Next one. How do you get money from an ATM? Money, right? Because money is what we want. We all want. So ATM, money out, how? Okay. So each time we set up a new topic, the eyebrows should go up. Even if the sentence gets more and more complicated, you will see the eyebrows happen quite often. As you're like, here's a new topic. Okay, got me. Good. New topic. Got me. You still with me? Great. Okay, here's my question. All right. So now the next set of sentences. Who are you closer to, your mom or your dad? What's the topic? Right? Because you're talking about them. So these two people, mom, dad, you close which? So these two, that's the topic, that's the subject. They're not doing any action. You're doing the action, but we're talking about them. Right? Now, the next sentence is who invented the light bulb? And this is where we get to the only other new vocab word for this sentence, and it's invented, which I'll highlight it later, I believe. But light bulb. So that, who invented it? Take the forehand shape from the think place of your brain, right? Right, just to the side, sort of the corner. You got a square skull like I do. It's like my video keeps like futzing out. Okay, so create or invent or make up. Okay, so the light bulb, invent who? Light bulb. I'm tempted to go by who, since there's a sort of direction to that. So here's invent, create, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, so the next sentence, what happened when Gallaudet and Claire arrived in America? So topic, these two arrive, what happened, right? So these two is the subject. They're the people who do the action. They arrived. They're who we're talking about. What two colors make green? Two colors. Combined, green. So again, sometimes in English we'll think about it one way, but as we start thinking about what's the clearest way to sign this question, to sign this sentence, then usually it's going to be, oh, two colors. That's what I want to focus on, because that's what I'm going to ask for the definition of. Then which day of the week do you like best? Day of the week, right? Day of the week. So, day of the week, you prefer which? One way of saying it. Okay. So again, as the topic comes up, eyebrows should be going up. These are good sentences to practice, just to sort of get used to. And if you're not sure about the order, try it a couple different ways. For topic comment, it's pretty simple. Topic first, and then whatever else you have to say about it. We're going to get into a little bit more complex structure in just a second. Right now. If you had me, we may have already talked about this. I tend to do it in ASL2. This is the generic word order for ASL, and it includes all different forms. And as with English, you could have really long sentences that include different groupings of these things that all connect in different ways. But I want to look at the simplest form. We start it with time and location. Those two, I should probably put a little plus sign between because they are really kind of one concept. If you watch a movie that's set in a different time and place than the present, they're going to give you that information right from the beginning. And anytime they change, they will give you that information because it has to be clear. Same thing happens in an ASL story. Once you set up a time and a place, it stays the same unless you lead them out to a different time or a different place. And then you have to keep the audience with you. Because if something gets confused and you forget to say, oh, by the way, we traveled back to the 1700s, all of a sudden, the camera pans back or you're describing something and they pull out their sword. It's 2020. No one has swords. They should. Life would be so much easier if we had swords and not guns, right? Because then you have to be engaged. You can't from across the room. Anyways, so time, location, boom. And then we get into the simple subject, object, subject, verb. Object and subject are very similar. They are the things that are either manipulating or being manipulated within the sentence. Me and the sandwich I'm going to eat. Me and my iced tea. Those are two things. Now, depending what happens, if the iced tea spills on me, it's the subject. If I knock over the iced tea, I'm the subject. So the first thing is the object, whatever's being affected. And then the subject is who's doing the affecting. So the cup, I hit it, and it fell over and spilled. Okay. Sandwich, boom, I ate. So that's the clearest way of setting it up. So if I say I ate, you don't know what I ate. It could be this paper towel. It could be hand sanitizer. Don't drink bleach. Anyways, if you thought Tide Pods were bad, bleach is worse. Okay, so we've got object, subject, verb. There can be multiple objects. There can be multiple subjects. The reason why the subject goes last is because they're the ones doing the verb. So, I ate. If you remember in, I think, ASL2, they talk about feeding the cat. And invariably, the very first thing people sign is eat the cat. Don't eat the cat. Don't eat the dog. You're not taking the food yourself. The food is going in your face. You're giving it to the animal, right? So feed the dog. Feed the cat. So the same way, that verb is important, the direction it's going. So you want it to go from whoever's doing the verb. So we have time and location. Then we have the objects, things that are being affected. Subject, people who are doing the actions. And then that verb, the action. And then anything that gets attached to the verb is a modifier. That can move around the sentence depending on what you're talking about, but most often it's dovetailed right up against that verb. Eat, finish, smoke, will, celebrate later, enjoy not, right? Movie Thor. Ew. So we don't have tenses in ASL. The way we reflect that is putting a modifier. That modifier could change the timing. It could negate that verb. I'm happy. Not. Right? So it functions a little differently than we are used to in English. But in general, you're going to want to attach those two. So subject is attached to verb, which is attached to the modifier. General rule. There's always going to be some irregulars. Then the last thing is where we put the question. The question goes at the end. So if I put the sentence in red, why did you arrive? Oh, you know what? I want to change that to CLASS, class. I changed the sentence between. Okay, so why did you arrive at class late yesterday? So in English, you say, why did you arrive at class late yesterday? That in ASL on the surface is pretty confusing because nothing is attached to anything else. So you can ASLize it. So you can start with the why and then insert at the end like ASL wants. And you can change the timing a little bit, but it's probably the easiest to look at the sentence and say, how do I flip things around? For me, I'm a very puzzle-oriented brain, ADHD, so I like putting things in order and then playing with them. That's kind of how I see things, very visual. So for me, this kind of glossing, writing the English words down helps, because then I can practice that and feel, oh, I got the rhythms of that. When I was doing plays in ASL and performing in ASL, this is how I would work on the translation. Is I would write out the ASL word order and then any little markings I needed, like where do I look, what do I point at, eyebrows up, eyebrows down, and then I would copy that until it got smooth. So for this, we switch things around and put time first, which is yesterday. Some people do it with a Y, yesterday. Now we've got a location, class. I like to set it up in space, especially if I'm going to talk about it later. So if you just, in an arbitrary sentence, you probably don't need to, or if we've already established. But I would recommend, as you're practicing these sentences, establish. If you talk about a person, my brother over there, right? Set it up so we have an indexing, using the index finger. So yesterday, class, we don't have an object, right? There's nothing being affected. I guess technically class is the object. So it's working as both location and object. So class, you arrive late. So here's the verb, arrive, and the modifier, late. Then we tack on the question, why? So in English, we start out by saying, I've got a question for you, why? And then everything that follows is the question. In ASL, we say, okay, here's this situation. Why did this happen? It's a little bit clearer for visual. The brain can only keep so many things in its head, and a 3D picture is a lot of information. So it's easier with words to keep that in mind. And especially in the end of an English sentence where we raise the tone, that tone will shift to indicate a question was just asked. So in ASL, remember, so yesterday, class, you arrived late. Why? Eyebrows go down, right? Because you want information. You don't want them to say, yes. And you'll have that look of consternation of, are you dumb? Or are you avoiding answering this question? Okay, so, broad. Now, as I say, normally in class, signing naturally does not push glossing. They want you to absorb it through osmosis, and that's not how I learned it. So I think especially with doing these online lectures and with me being able to explain them where I can't really show it as easily or repeatedly throughout the class with every example, we are going to use glossing. And if you ever have any questions, if it's a technique that helps you, just ask and we can tweak things. There's no real set rules. ASL doesn't have a written form. This is the closest thing we have. I am going to, I hope my video has not been giving me problems. But I had Zoom open in the background. And I'm going to close Outlook as well. Quit Outlook. It's a work laptop, which means the memory is severely wanting. It's typical government funding. Who's the lowest price? Give it to them. It's like, but it's not exactly useful. Don't care. It's cheap. Okay. So again, every time we introduce new information, we're going to raise our eyebrows. Make sure, got it? Okay, got it. Yeah. Location, got it? Great. Object, got it? Great. Subject, got it? Great. Here's my action, great. And then why, right? And then whatever the WH question is. Remember, a yes/no question doesn't have a question word at the end. We might do right at the end, but there's no question word to tack on. So now we get more complicated. Let's look for the other pieces. Look the time, location, object, subject, verb, modifier, question. There aren't many in these, so it's important if you look at it and go, oh, are any of these here? That will help me where I need to locate them. So how much does a baseball hat cost? So how much, cost, okay. So how much will be at the end? So baseball hat cost how much? Then just thought of something for another lecture that I need to make note of. Then much. All right, I don't want to forget that. Okay. What is the number? What is the number? So blah blah blah. Number what? So 3 will have what at the end. 4 will have why. And 5, how or how. ATM, money, out, how. Because really ATM is kind of, it's an object or it's the location. Both acting as the same thing. So I tried to color code them so it'd be a little bit easier. For number 3, the only time reference we've got in all 5 of these sentences for the next few days, or future, creeps in this, pet pace. Next set of sentences. We know the topics already. We've already looked at those. So let's take a look at how we break this down. There's the questions. No time. No locations. No, location. Number 8 has America. Arrive, America. So we've got America. Gallaudet and Claire arrive. What happened? So I suppose I should do, let me do this, and Megzet, orange, and the bold. There. So what happened? What happened? So they're all actually pretty simple. These are nice sentences because there's not too much going on. When we get into really long and complicated questions, this can be, it can be confusing what to use, whether it's topic, comment, or or topic, comment, or this longer object, subject, verb, time, location. We just call it object, subject, verb, knowing that there's other stuff we can add on the beginning and the end. And then what we would normally do is go around and practice, and everybody would practice sentences. There's 3 things to think about, 3 layers that you want to sort of master before you go on to the next one. First is word order. Time, location, object, subject, verb, modifier, question. Figure out what those are. Sign. I can sign it. Okay, I know it. It's a sentence. It's not hard to memorize with your short-term memory. So if you're having trouble memorizing signs like that, got choppy. I hope it's recording well. Anyway, if you're having trouble with that, we need to think about some strategies for how to approach that, because you're going to need that short-term memory in watching someone else sign to remember what they're saying from the start of the sentence to the end. So the first is the order. What are the correct signs? Am I producing them correctly? And so that. Pacing a little bit in there, what's connected to what. The second layer, once you've got that, is facial expressions, facial grammar. When do you raise your eyebrows? Topics, new concepts. When do you lower your eyebrows for the question word? And usually a WH word at the end holds, right? The end of a sentence, you generally pause on that sign and then drop it or move on to the next one. And then 3 is fluency. Once you've got round 1 and round 2 done, then you can start working on how to get it smooth. If there are any awkward ways of going from one side to another, it's like with finger spelling. If there are 2 letters that are hard to get to, practice that transition until it feels smooth. When I was studying sword fighting and fencing and stage combat, there are lots of katas or drills that have gone through the ages of sword fighting, where if it's difficult to get from this move to this move, you can count on the fact that your enemy is going to try to use that as a weakness. So you want to practice that move of how do I go for my swords up here and the guy's stabbing at my thigh. I'm gonna drop it down and then clear my body, right? So same thing with dance moves. If there's 2 dance moves that are difficult to do, or 2 notes that are difficult to play, 2 chords that are difficult to play on a piano in succession, that you focus on that until you can do it. Chord changes on a guitar or ukulele, same thing. So anything that's difficult physically to do, challenging to do, you want to practice that until it's smooth. And then the easy stuff's far easier. Don't worry about speed. We don't have to go fast. Speed will come. Some of the most glorious signers I know sign slow. They take their time. I want you to think about a nice, rich Southern drawl. Someone from Georgia who's telling you a story about going out as a little kid and picking peaches, and how wonderful they were to just take a bite and it just drips down your face, right? Enjoy the language. Don't be like in New York and have to talk really fast and everything's got to be really quick and I got to get this information out because I got to go get myself a slice of pizza, a big slice of pizza that I fold up and I shove in my face before the rat gets it. Think slow. Take your time. There's no rush. I would rather you be slow and clear, signing clear. People think that if I sign fast, it looks like I'm more skilled. It doesn't fool anybody. What shows that you have skill is if every sign is exact and they flow and we can tell exactly what you're saying. If it's just it's kind of like when someone talks to you like this and you can't really understand what they're saying. It's hard. So focus on clarity. It's much better to be clear because then you can relax from there. But if you already start relaxed, it's really hard to get more clear. Right. So go back now and all of the vocab. We've got who, what, where, all the ones that we knew before, and the 2 that we added on, like what happened and create or make up. Do it with one hand. Here are 2 videos for the new ones. What happened and create, right? And then the book has follow-up activities, sentences for you to review the next day or as a homework assignment or whatever. And they're the same sentences. How creative. But I will put some other things in. I will take any videos that are on the actual chapter and put them in. They don't play well on the screencast, so I will put them in now that I need to pull up the chapter. I don't remember how many there would be. So, homework. You know what? The homework is just those sentences. So, just practice these sentences. The other thing you can do is notice how you can take any signs you know and plug them into that formula. Time, location. Make it up. Do a Mad Libs. Whatever. Crazy things. Make silly sentences. It can be fun. It's a good practice for with a partner if you're screencasting with someone else or video chatting with someone else. They said, okay, let me try this sentence and try to give them a wacky, insane sentence. If I can figure out a way to set up Mad Libs on GoReact, it'd be really fun. But I haven't figured out if there's a way that we can have two people partner up and go create something very easily. So anyway, that is 10.3. That's the last slide. That's the last slide. So I'll post this for the weekend. I'll have 10.4 and hopefully 10.5 up over the weekend, so you'll have them for Monday. All right. So that's it. Hope your weekend is going to be fine. I will be on, well, I may have to trim this video if for other semesters, but if you have questions, see me in my office hours, and hope everything is cool. Thanks.